question of preemption will not necessarily destroy a moratorium. If the moratorium is only based on a prohibition or a site control or a ban or partial ban of this process, and the court holds that municipalities are preempted, and the legislature doesn't pass a law to overturn what the courts have held, which under the environmental conservation law has happened many times in the past, then the arm of this local law that is looking at the question of whether or not you can ban or partially ban it or regulate certain aspects of it would probably fail. If your moratorium was based wholly on that, it would fail. The question of aquifers and wetlands and CEAs and clean air and water, those stand on a completely different provision of the environmental conservation law and other laws that would not be touched by that exact question. An example is wetlands. New York State not only grants specific authority to towns to pass wetlands laws, they actually encourage it, and you're actually permitted to pass a stricter wetlands law. Plus, a town has absolute authority over what are called wetlands of local importance, generally those that are not under Corps of Engineer or DEC regulation, largely being unmapped and less than 12.4 acres.
Well, my own personal opinion is like, Dryden can't afford a lawsuit like that, and the town of Caroline certainly can't.
So I'm going to step in here for a second, and you didn't know, so I'm not going to be upset with you, but I just want to let people know, and again, that there will be a public comment period, an official public hearing, where you can express your opinions about things. Okay, and it's fine because I didn't make this clear before, so you're fine. But my request for tonight is that we keep this focused on questions about what's happening in the law, and then there will be subsequent opportunities to express your opinion about whether or not you like it.
I don't think that was a question of like or dislike. It was a question of resources for this.
Resources for
The moratorium.
Resources for a moratorium in regards to defending a moratorium.
What I'm saying is, what happened in Dryden happens in the town of Caroline, you know what they call it.
So, Guy, was your answer in regards to a moratorium or in regards to a ban? And
it was in regards to the moratorium.
Okay, is there a difference in the way that we might or might not be subject to lawsuit with moratorium versus ban?
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
Well, there are books written on the subject, but shortly stated, a moratorium is by nature temporary. It is a little more fragile than a local law. It's not given all of the traditional local law where you're enacting, let's say an aquifer protection of some sort. Because it's temporary in nature, there has to be a number of things in place to support it other than a lawful basis for its existence. Such as you can't pass a moratorium and then do nothing for 10 months, and then all of a sudden say, oh, we're almost out of time, let's just extend it. A moratorium requires that there be an actual need for breathing space and actual reasonably diligent, good faith efforts to make progress in looking at whatever you need to look at. So let's say the town board looks at one of the purposes that is identified as this moratorium, and they say, you know what, I don't think we really need to deal with that issue right now. It's not critical. We're not going to pass a law on that subject. Well, okay, then as to that subject, the moratorium is largely ended because you basically self-terminated. The question of resources to defend a claim, that's a monetary question that's not necessarily within the breadth of my knowledge as to what all the nuances of the town funding capabilities are and the different vehicles that can be used to utilize funds that aren't necessarily in the current year's budget. Believe me, those exist. But the question really is one that one would probably need to be addressed to the town board. I don't know what Dryden's expenses are. I do know that Middlefield, in defending their claim, has spent about $35,000 at this point.
I think where I was trying to go, and I don't know if this is where you were trying to go with this or not, is there a difference in the likelihood of getting sued if one has a moratorium versus a ban? Is a moratorium less likely to encounter a lawsuit?
No, I don't think the difference is there. In both cases, it's going to require a company that has an intent to get a permit and wants to drill in a particular location, and there's an obstacle in their way, so they want to challenge it. The moratorium, they tend to be more fragile because they're temporary in nature, and therefore they can't last indefinitely. The longer a moratorium lasts, the less likely it is to survive, and that's a formula based on what kind of efforts and progress have been made and how complex is the underlying subject matter. So they tend to be a little more fragile when they're challenged because they have a short lifespan. A local law obviously is permanent, and therefore it will be more immediately challenged. In this situation, in this particular industry, I don't see that there's a substantive difference in the likelihood of being sued for having or not having this. It's always been a turn on what are the drilling plans of a party in interest.
So then maybe Don, can you address the other component of this gentleman's question then, which is about the town's resources for addressing a lawsuit for Board of People?
So the question is, the town's resources in addressing a lawsuit, and we have budgeted each year a certain amount of money for legal advice. And over the last several years, we've stayed within that budget. And but that does not include defending the town against the lawsuit. The town actually was sued when it first came on the town board because a fatal accident where someone ran into a tree, and they accused the town of having not done a good job maintaining the road, so the trees was the cause of death. And the town is always at risk of being sued, so that's really because of where we are and how big we are, that's always out there. So that's a risk we take all the time, and it's up to the town board to weigh those risks when they're working on developing the local law, to do so with the best knowledge that they have to try to reduce the chance of being sued, knowing that they still could be. And as far as the resources go, if the suit was proved to be $35,000, we would not budgeted for that. We do have a fund balance that most likely would take it out of, but it would be a sobering experience for sure to have to deal with that, because that's how we pride ourselves in being able to be conservative and not have to spend more than our budget each year. So money would be there to cover it. It may not be what I would consider the best use of our funds, but at the same time, if we have a local law that needs to be defended, then we should.
Don, about how big is this year's allocation to
I believe the budget amount is $20,000.
Yeah, so that's about annually.
And we've stayed within that or under that over the last 5 or 6 years.
Middlefield's really, that's just a small town. Lots of hours,
Yeah. If I could also add, one of the other options you would have if you were sued on a local law or moratorium is to pass a local law terminating the local law. You could always withdraw the moratorium that would sort of seem anti-climactic. It would seem exactly the opposite of what you intend, but you do have that option, whether it's based on cost, whether it's based on a change in the law, whatever. I mean, that option's always on the table as a risk management, idea.
And I think you were number 4, and then Tony was number 5, and then, all right.
Three.
Oh, we're still number, no, he
Right
just did
here.
number 3.
Number 3.
Linda's 4.
No, I'm 3.
Yeah, Linda, okay, that's what I thought, is that he was, okay. The real number 3, sorry.
I have a magic marker. My name's Joe Wicke. 55 years in Speedsville, New York. Very proud of it. 39 years on the fire department. My question is,
That's my fire
the first thing you started
Yeah.
with this conversation was this moratorium is to stop drilling. Now, when I listen to Don, it's more making it safe drilling. I'd like to know, what is it?
my understanding is that the moratorium is a temporary prohibition against drilling and drilling-related activities while we put a variety of protections in place. While we consider a variety of protections that the town might want to put in place, including road use agreements, critical environmental areas, industrial site plan review, watershed protection.
So
And be that I did.
Good. I mean, the first thing you said when you started the conversation was this is to stop drilling. And I know a lot of people here use natural gas, and you know, it's something that's better for the earth, and it's something that should happen. If this is moratorium, it is for safe drilling, to make it safe. It's a completely different picture. Just want to make sure where we are.
And I'm not, the moratorium is, to my understanding, again, a prohibition against any drilling-related activities. So drilling or putting in pipelines or putting a compressor station. It's a prohibition against any of those drilling-related activities or drilling itself.
Can I
After
answer
review.
that? Because he knows exactly what I'm asking.
Yeah, I actually want to answer
sorry.
the question.
Thank you.
So,
Sorry.
it's okay. The term they use, safe drilling, is actually not within the town's purview to enact. So safe drilling is not on the table. If you look at the things that I mentioned, which if you want to bring them up again, I mean, they are all things that are within the town's purview. So coming up with a road use policy, to keep the taxpayer from paying for roads that have been damaged or destroyed because of heavy use that they weren't designed for. Aquifer protection, if there are certain aquifers that we feel that they need to be protected, it gives us the opportunity to look at that. There, of course, are a number of pipelines that are not regulated by anyone, and if they're running through our town and the town decides that it's important that it regulates it, then that's something else. So these are all things that are within the town's control if it wants to take it on. And the reason for having a moratorium is to give the town breathing room in case permits are issued, so they can consider these things, and as our attorney said, we have to work diligently towards answering those questions. And then, if after we consider it, we feel there's something that we should bring to the public as a local law, then we will get your feedback and decide what we want to enact or not. That's a standard process. Does that answer your question, Mr. Rickey?
It's
More or less? You have a follow-up?
closer.
Okay.
It's closer.
That's my understanding, but if we can flesh that out more if somebody has a better question. Or a different one, not a better one, a different one, sorry.
And sorry if I didn't get where you're coming from. So Linda, you're number 4.
I think Guy touched on a good point, and I'm wondering if this is something that the community should think about. Some of these things are indeed in local jurisdiction now, so we don't need to have a moratorium. The big thing is road use and pipelines, and those two things are in our jurisdiction right now. So I'm wondering if we can make those priorities, get to work on them, get those done this summer, then bring the moratorium up so that we have clock time running on the things that aren't in our local jurisdiction, specifically. Set some priorities.
Is that a question?
I'm wondering, should we be looking at priorities? What's on our tool belt now to do? Save the moratorium card for a later date until we get the items that we can get done now. The road use, we're well on our way. We've got the road construction culvert law that's on the books. We've got funding, did a good job finding an engineering firm to look at the capacity of our roads, the shape that they're in, get that inventory done, and follow it right up with a road use agreement on the books. Right now, we don't have anything on the books.
What's the question?
So the question is, can we think about priorities and get pipelines and roads done first? Just really focus on that. It's so important.
I guess I'm not understanding what the advantage